Watch where you're going. The lawyer shoved the black teenager hard, coffee splashing everywhere. You know who I am? I just passed the bar. What are you, still in high school? His friends circled closer, laughing, mocking the kid's worn sneakers and faded hoodie. The teenager said nothing, just stood there, silent, while they tore him apart in the middle of the mall. 3 days later, that lawyer walked into his final job interview, and the teenager was sitting at the head of the table. The billionaire's son, the one who would decide his fate. If you've ever seen someone get what they deserve, you need to stay for this. Let's see how this plays out. Braden Leonard felt like he owned the world. 3 days after passing the bar exam, he stood in Grandview Mall wearing a suit that cost more than some people's rent, surrounded by friends who fed off his energy. They were celebrating. They were untouchable. Then some kid in a hoodie bumped into him. What happened next wasn't an accident. It was a choice. Braden shoved him, hard. His friends closed in, laughing, mocking the teenager's worn sneakers and cheap clothes. They asked if he knew who Braden was. A lawyer now, someone important. The kid just stood there, silent, absorbing every insult like he'd heard it all before. When he finally walked away, Braden didn't think twice about it. 3 days later, Braden walked into Sterling & Associates for his dream job interview. Senior partners filled the boardroom. Everyone waited for the young manager, the billionaire's son who made all final hiring decisions. The door opened. Braden's heart stopped. It was him. Hit that subscribe button right now, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and like this video, because what's about to unfold will shake you. The marble floors of Grandview Mall caught the afternoon light like scattered diamonds. Braden adjusted his tie, charcoal gray, silk, expensive, and couldn't stop grinning. 3 days ago, he'd passed the bar exam. 3 days ago, his entire life had clicked into place like a lock, finally finding its key. "My man!" Michael clapped him on the shoulder, nearly spilling his overpriced coffee. "How does it feel to be a lawyer?" "Like I can do whatever the hell I want," Braden said, and they all laughed. Michael, Taylor, Leroy, the whole crew that had been with him since undergrad. They were loud on purpose, taking up space in the atrium near the fountain where everyone could see them, where everyone could know they mattered. "Sterling & Associates called me back," Braden announced, watching their faces light up. "Final interviews in 3 days." "No way," Taylor said. "That's the biggest firm in the city." "I know." Braden felt invincible. 25 years old with the world bending toward him like it had been waiting all along. That's when someone bumped into him. Not hard. Just a brush of shoulders near the fountain's edge. But Braden's coffee splashed against his shirt cuff, and when he turned, ready to accept an apology, he saw a black kid in a faded gray hoodie and beat-up sneakers that had seen better years. The kid looked maybe 17, 18. He had close-cropped hair and dark eyes that didn't look away fast enough. "Watch where you're going," Braden snapped, louder than necessary. The kid stopped. Didn't apologize, just stood there. "You serious right now?" Braden shoved him, not hard, but enough to make a point. "You don't even have the decency to say sorry?" The kid's face stayed neutral, empty, like Braden wasn't worth the energy of a response. That made it worse. "Look at this guy," Michael said, stepping closer. "Where'd you get those shoes, man? Goodwill?" The kid's jaw tightened, but he still didn't speak. Braden felt his friends gathering around, feeding off the moment. He felt the power of it, the attention from people slowing down to watch, the way the kid had no backup, no one to defend him. "You know who my friend is?" Taylor gestured at Braden like he was presenting royalty. "He just passed the bar. He's about to work at Sterling & Associates. What are you, still in high school?" The kid's eyes flicked to Taylor, then back to Braden. Still nothing. "He's not even gonna talk," Leroy laughed. "Probably can't afford a lawyer if we sued him for ruining Braden's shirt." They were all laughing now. A few people nearby had their phones out, recording or pretending not to. The kid just stood there absorbing it like rain, and something about his silence made Braden angrier. Next time, watch where you're walking, Braden said, stepping into the kid's space. People like us don't have time for people like you. The kid looked at him for one more second, something unreadable passing behind his eyes, then turned and walked away. No argument, no defense, just gone. Braden watched him disappear into the crowd near the escalators, hoodie blending into a dozen other people who didn't matter. That was wild, Michael said, still laughing. Braden shrugged, already forgetting. Some people need to learn their place. They ordered more coffee. Braden changed his shirt at the boutique across the hall. $200, easy. They spent the rest of the afternoon celebrating, and Braden didn't think about the kid again. Why would he? He had an interview to prepare for. The email came at 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Braden read it 3 times just to make sure it was real. Dear Mr. Leonard, we are pleased to inform you that you have successfully passed the preliminary screening and assessment phases for the associate attorney position at Sterling & Associates. You are hereby invited to attend a final interview with our executive leadership team, including our young manager, Mr. Tyson Mullins, who conducts all final hiring decisions on behalf of his father, Mr. Richard Mullins, founder and CEO. Please arrive at our offices on Thursday, September 21st at 10 o'clock a.m. Braden set his phone down on the kitchen counter and exhaled slowly. Sterling & Associates. The firm that handled Fortune 500 companies, high-profile mergers, cows that made national news. The kind of place where starting salary could pay off his student loans in 2 years instead of 20. He called Mikkel immediately. Dude, I'm in, Braden said before Michael could even say hello. Final interview. Thursday. No way, Michael's voice exploded through the speaker. That's insane, man. I told you you'd get it. It's not official yet, Braden said, but he was already smiling so hard his face hurt. But yeah, it's basically mine. They talked for 20 minutes, Mikhail hyping him up, running through every reason Braden was the obvious choice, every accomplishment that made him untouchable. By the time they hung up, Braden felt like he could walk through walls. He spent the next 2 days preparing like his life depended on it. He researched every senior partner at Sterling & Associates, memorized their case histories, their courtroom strategies, their published articles. He bought a new suit, midnight blue, tailored, the kind that said, I belong here, without trying too hard. He practiced answers to interview questions in the mirror until they sounded natural, effortless. Wednesday night, Taylor and Leroy came over with beer and takeout to celebrate early. To Braden Leonard, Taylor raised his bottle. Future attorney at Sterling & Associates. Future senior partner, Leroy corrected, grinning. They toasted, and Braden felt the weight of everything he'd worked for finally landing in his hands. 4 years of undergrad, 3 years of law school, months of studying for the bar, all of it culminating in this one interview with some billionaire's kid who probably got his position handed to him. What do you even know about this young manager guy? Michael asked, scrolling through his phone. Tyson Mullins, Braden said. Richard Mullins' son. He's young, like 20, maybe 21. Supposedly, he's been groomed for this since he was a teenager. Sits in on all the final interviews, makes the hiring calls. Sounds like a spoiled rich kid playing CEO, Taylor muttered. Probably, Braden agreed. But if he signs off on me, I don't care if he's 12. They all laughed. You got this, Michael said seriously. You're smarter than half the people already working there. They'd be lucky to have you. Braden nodded. He believed it. He'd earned this. Every late night in the library, every case brief, every mock trial, it all led here. To this room, this moment, this future that was finally within reach. Thursday morning, he woke up at 6:30, showered, shaved, put on the midnight blue suit that fit like it had been designed specifically for his shoulders. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw exactly what he wanted to see. Success. By 9:15, he was in his car heading downtown, windows down, confidence bleeding into every mile. By 9:55, he was walking through the glass doors of Sterling & Associates, briefcase in hand, ready to claim what was his. He had no idea his entire world was about to collapse. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than it should have. Braden watched the numbers climb, 38, 39, 40, and tried to keep his breathing steady. His reflection stared back at him from the polished steel doors. Sharp suit, confident posture, everything exactly where it needed to be. The doors opened to a reception area that looked like it cost more than his childhood home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, sunlight pouring across cream-colored leather furniture and abstract art that probably had names he wouldn't recognize. A woman behind a sleek marble desk smiled at him. "Braden Leonard?" she asked. "That's me." "Perfect timing. They're ready for you. Conference room is straight down the hall, last door on your left." Braden thanked her and started walking. His shoes made soft clicks against the hardwood. Somewhere behind closed doors, he could hear phones ringing, low conversations, the hum of a law firm operating at the highest level. This was where he belonged. He could feel it. The conference room door was already open. Inside, 5 people sat around a massive table made of dark walnut. Senior partners, all of them. He recognized their faces from the website. Jalen Palmer, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, known for never losing a contract dispute. Kenneth Reeves, who'd argued before the Supreme Court twice. Dana McRae, whose name alone could scare opposing counsel into settlements. They all looked up when Braden entered. "Mr. Leonard?" Jalen said warmly, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please, have a seat. We're just waiting for Mr. Mullins." Braden sat, shaking hands with each partner as they introduced themselves. His palms were dry, his voice was steady, everything was going exactly as planned. "How are you feeling?" Kenneth asked, leaning back in his chair. "Grateful to be here," Braden said. "Honest, but not desperate. Confident, but not arrogant. The perfect balance." "We were impressed with your application," Dana added. "Top 15% of your class, moot court champion, clerked for Judge Hendricks. That's a strong foundation." Braden smiled. "Thank you. I've worked hard to get here." "That's exactly what we're looking for," Jalen said. "People who understand that excellence isn't given, it's earned." The door opened behind him. Braden didn't turn immediately. He heard footsteps, calm and measured, crossing the room toward the head of the table. He heard someone set down a leather portfolio. He heard Jalen say, "Good morning, Tyson." Then Braden turned. The air left his lungs. The young manager, Tyson Mullins, was the kid from the mall. Same face, same dark eyes, same expression that gave away nothing. Except now he wore a tailored navy suit that fit like it had been sewn onto him. A crisp white shirt, a watch that probably cost more than Braden's car. He looked older somehow, sharper, like the hoodie and worn sneakers had been a disguise he'd shed. Braden's brain stopped working. Tyson sat down at the head of the table, opened his portfolio, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He looked at it for a long moment, then raised his eyes to meet Braden's. "Mr. Leonard," Tyson said quietly. His voice was calm, professional. Nothing in it suggested recognition, but Braden knew. He could see it in the way Tyson held his gaze, steady and unblinking. "Thank you for coming in today." Braden's mouth had gone completely dry. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. "Shall we begin?" Tyson said to the room. The other partners nodded, flipping open their own notes, completely unaware of what was happening. "If you're wondering how Braden's going to survive this, you're not alone. Stick around because this interview is about to get painfully real." Braden forced himself to nod, and Tyson smiled. Small, controlled, devastating. "Let's start with something straightforward," Tyson said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Why do you want to work at Sterling and Associates?" Braden's mind scrambled. He'd rehearsed this answer 100 times. It should have rolled off his tongue effortlessly. But all he could see was Tyson standing in the mall, absorbing insults without a word, and now sitting at the head of this table, holding Braden's entire future in his hands. Braden cleared his throat. "I've always admired the firm's commitment to excellence. The caliber of cases you handle, the reputation you've built. It's exactly the kind of environment where I know I can grow and contribute meaningfully." Tyson didn't blink. "That sounds rehearsed." The senior partners shifted slightly in their seats. "Let me rephrase," Tyson continued, leaning forward just enough that Braden could see the gold cufflinks at his wrists. "Why should we want you? Braden felt sweat gathering at the back of his neck. Because I work harder than anyone else. I don't take shortcuts. I've spent years preparing for this moment. Interesting. Tyson made a note on the paper in front of him. And how do you handle situations where you've made a mistake? When you've misjudged something? Or someone? The question landed like a punch. Braden's throat tightened. Was this about the mall? Was Tyson asking directly? Or was this just a standard interview question that happened to feel like an interrogation? I take accountability, Braden said carefully. I believe in owning my errors and learning from them. Do you? Tyson's eyes didn't leave his face. Can you give me an example? Silence stretched between them. The other partners waited, pens poised over their notes. Jalen glanced at Tyson, then back at Braden, clearly sensing something beneath the surface, but not quite understanding what. During my time clerking, Braden said slowly, I once filed a motion with an incorrect citation. Judge Hendricks caught it, and I had to refile. I learned to triple-check everything after that. A citation error, Tyson repeated. That's what you consider a significant mistake? It taught me attention to detail. What about mistakes that affect people? Tyson interrupted. His voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath now. Errors in judgment that harm someone directly. How do you handle those? Braden couldn't breathe properly. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. Kenneth jumped in, clearly trying to ease the tension. Tyson asks tough questions, Mr. Leonard. He believes character reveals itself under pressure. I appreciate that, Braden managed. Tyson set down his pen. Tell me about your character, then. How do you treat people when you think it doesn't matter? When there are no consequences? The question hung in the air like smoke. Braden's mind raced through possible answers, but every single one felt like a trap. He could see his friends' faces in the mall, hear their laughter echoing. He could feel the moment he shoved Tyson, the casual cruelty of it, how easy it had been to forget. I treat everyone with respect, Braden said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Everyone? Tyson asked softly. The other partners were watching now, fully attentive, sensing something unspoken happening in the room. Yes, Braden said. Everyone. Tyson nodded slowly, then looked down at his notes. We'll come back to that. He moved on to the next question, something about contract law, but Braden barely heard it. He was drowning, and Tyson hadn't even started yet. The next 20 minutes were surgical. Tyson didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every question was precise, calculated, designed to expose something Braden hadn't prepared to defend. While the other partners asked standard interview questions about case strategy and legal theory, Tyson circled back again and again to character, judgment, respect. Mr. Leonard, Tyson said, flipping through the papers in his portfolio, you mentioned working with Judge Hendricks. What did you learn from him about professional conduct? That integrity matters more than winning, Braden answered automatically. Does it? Tyson looked up. So, if you had to choose between advancing your career and doing the right thing, which would you choose? The right thing, Braden said. Always? Tyson's expression didn't change. Even when no one's watching? The room temperature seemed to drop. Dana cleared her throat. Tyson, these are excellent questions, but perhaps we should give Mr. Leonard a chance to discuss his actual legal experience. Of course. Tyson smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Leonard, tell us about a time you had to advocate for someone who couldn't advocate for themselves. Braden talked about pro bono work during law school, a housing dispute he'd helped with. But the entire time he spoke, he could feel Tyson watching him like a scientist, observing an experiment. Clinical, detached, waiting for something. When Braden finished, Tyson nodded thoughtfully. That's admirable. So you believe in standing up for people who are vulnerable? People who might be dismissed or overlooked based on appearance or circumstance? Absolutely, Braden said. Good. Tyson leaned back in his chair. Because at Sterling and Associates, we don't just represent powerful clients. We represent the truth. And the truth doesn't care what someone's wearing or where they come from. Braden's stomach twisted. Kenneth jumped in again, asking about Braden's understanding of corporate litigation, and Braden answered on autopilot while his mind screamed at him to figure out what Tyson was doing. Was he going to expose the mall incident here? In front of everyone? Or was this slow torture just the beginning? "One more question, Mr. Leonard," Tyson said as the interview seemed to be winding down. "If you were standing in a public place and witnessed someone being treated unfairly, mocked, humiliated, belittled, what would you do?" Braden's heart hammered against his ribs. "I would intervene." "Would you?" Tyson tilted his head slightly. "Even if the person being mistreated was a stranger? Someone you assumed had no power, no connections, no way to affect your life?" "Yes," Braden said, but his voice came out quieter than he intended. "Why?" "Because it's the right thing to do." Tyson studied him for a long moment, and Braden saw something flicker behind those dark eyes. Disappointment, maybe. Or worse, pity. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Leonard," Tyson said finally, closing his portfolio. "We'll be in touch within the next few days with our decision." The other partners stood, shaking Braden's hand, offering encouraging words. Jalen mentioned something about him being a strong candidate. Kenneth said they'd enjoyed meeting him, but Tyson stayed seated, watching Braden gather his briefcase, watching him move toward the door. Just as Braden reached the threshold, Tyson spoke again. "Mr. Leonard?" Braden turned. Tyson's face was unreadable. "One piece of advice. When you leave here, think about the kind of lawyer you want to be, because the choices we make when we think nobody's watching, those define us more than anything we do in a courtroom." Braden nodded, throat too tight to speak. He walked out, and the door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded like a gavel. Braden made it to his car before the shaking started. He sat in the parking garage beneath Sterling & Associates, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing. His shirt was damp with sweat beneath his jacket. His mind kept replaying every question, every look, every word Tyson had said. The choices we make when we think nobody's watching. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers and called Michael. "How'd it go?" Michael answered immediately, voice bright with expectation. Braden stopped. How could he even explain? "It was complicated." "Complicated good or complicated bad?" "I don't know yet." Braden pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. "The young manager. He recognized me." Silence on the other end. Then, "Recognized you from what?" "The mall, Michael. That kid we ran into. The one He couldn't finish the sentence. "Wait." Michael's voice dropped. "That kid was the billionaire's son?" "Yeah." "Oh, man." A long exhale. "What did he say?" "Nothing direct. But every question felt like he was skinning me alive." Braden closed his eyes. "He knows, Michael. He definitely knows." "Did he tell the other partners?" "Not yet, but he didn't have to. The way he was asking questions about character, about how I treat people," Braden's voice cracked. "I'm done. There's no way he's hiring me after what we did." "What you did," Mikhail corrected quietly. "I mean, we were there, but you were the one who—" "Don't," Braden cut him off. "Just don't." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of consequences finally landing. "Maybe he'll let it go," Michael offered weakly. "Rich people forgive stuff all the time, right? Good PR and all that." Braden wanted to believe it, but he kept seeing Tyson's face in that conference room, controlled, professional, and absolutely merciless beneath the surface. "I need to go," Braden said. He drove home in a fog, barely registering traffic lights or turns. His apartment felt too small when he got there, the walls pressing in. He threw his jacket on the couch and loosened his tie, then stood in the middle of his living room not knowing what to do with himself. His phone buzzed. Email notification. Sterling & Associates. His heart stopped. They said they'd be in touch in a few days. It had been 3 hours. He opened the email with shaking hands. "Dear Mr. Leonard, thank you for taking the time to interview with us today. We appreciate your interest in Sterling & Associates. However, before we can move forward with our decision, we need to address a matter that has come to our attention. A video was posted online 4 days ago showing an incident at Grandview Mall. You appear prominently in this video. We would like to give you the opportunity to review this footage and provide context during a follow-up meeting. Please confirm your availability for tomorrow, Friday, September 22nd at 2:00 p.m. Sincerely, Executive Leadership Team, Sterling and Associates. Braden's hands went numb. A video. He opened his browser and searched Grandview Mall incident with hands that barely functioned. It took 30 seconds to find it. Posted by Taylor's girlfriend Cassidy on her Instagram story. Someone had screen recorded it and uploaded it to Twitter. The video showed everything. Him shoving Tyson, his friends laughing, the mocking, the cruelty, every single word he'd said. The way Tyson just stood there, silent, taking it. The caption read, "When you think you're better than everyone." It had 63,000 views. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach right now, subscribe, because the fallout from this is only just beginning. Braden dropped his phone. The room spun. He was finished. Braden didn't sleep that night. He sat on his couch in the dark, laptop open, watching the video over and over until he'd memorized every frame. 63,000 views had become 82,000. Then, 97. The comments section was a bloodbath. This is exactly why people don't trust lawyers. Hope this dude never gets a job. Disgusting. The way that kid just stood there and took it broke my heart. Anybody know who the guy in the suit is? Let's make sure everyone knows. Someone had already figured it out. A user named @JusticeWatch had posted his full name, his law school, the fact that he'd just passed the bar. Another user had found his LinkedIn profile and screenshot it. His professional headshot, smiling, confident, polished, sat right next to a freeze frame of him shoving Tyson in the mall. The contrast was damning. His phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Michael, Taylor, Leroy, all of them panicking, asking if he'd seen it, asking what they should do. Taylor was furious at Cassidy for posting it in the first place. Leroy suggested they could claim it was taken out of context. Braden didn't respond to any of them. At 3 a.m, he pulled up the email from Sterling and Associates again and stared at the words. We would like to give you the opportunity to review this footage and provide context. Context. What context could possibly make this better? What could he say that would change what everyone could see with their own eyes? He opened a blank document and tried to write something. An explanation, an apology, anything. But every sentence he typed sounded like an excuse. I was celebrating. I wasn't thinking. It was a bad moment. None of it mattered. The video didn't lie. At 6:30 a.m., he gave up pretending he'd sleep and took a shower. The hot water did nothing to wash away the dread sitting in his chest like a stone. He shaved, put on another suit, gray this time, more subdued, and looked at himself in the mirror. The person staring back looked like a stranger. By 1:45 p.m., he was sitting in his car outside Sterling and Associates again, trying to convince himself to go inside. His hands were shaking so badly he had to sit on them. At 1:58, he walked through the glass doors. The receptionist's smile was tighter this time, more professional, less warm. Mr. Leonard, they're expecting you, same conference room. The walk down that hallway felt like walking to an execution. The conference room door was open. Tyson sat at the head of the table again, but this time he wasn't alone. Jalen was there, Kenneth, Dana, all of them watching as Braden entered, and on the screen mounted to the wall behind them, paused on the first frame, was the video. Braden's face filled half the screen, frozen mid-shove, his expression twisted with contempt. Tyson was blurred in the background, barely visible, just a kid in a hoodie nobody cared about. Mr. Leonard, Tyson said quietly. Please, sit down. Braden sat. His legs felt like they might give out if he stayed standing. I assume you've seen this, Tyson gestured to the screen without looking at it. Yes, Braden whispered. Good. Tyson folded his hands on the table. Then let's talk about what happened. And more importantly, let's talk about who you actually are. Jalen pressed play. The video started, and Braden was forced to watch himself destroy everything he'd worked for, one cruel word at a time. The sound of his own laughter filled the room. The video played for 1 minute and 47 seconds. In the silence of the conference room, it felt like hours. Braden watched himself shove Tyson, heard his own voice, sharp, mocking, vicious. People like us don't have time for people like you. Watched his friends circle like predators, their laughter cutting through the mall's ambient noise. Watched Tyson stand there, absorbing every word without flinching, and then walk away. When it ended, nobody spoke. Tyson reached forward and paused the screen on the final frame, Braden and his friends high-fiving, celebrating their cruelty like it was a victory. "Mr. Leonard," Jalen said finally, her voice colder than Braden had ever heard it. "We brought you here to give you a chance to explain. So explain." Braden's mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. Every practiced sentence he'd tried to write at 3 a.m. had evaporated. "I was celebrating," he said, and immediately hated how weak it sounded. "I'd just passed the bar, and I wasn't thinking clearly." "You weren't thinking," Tyson interrupted, his voice still calm, still devastatingly controlled. "Is that your defense? That you accidentally treated another human being like garbage because you were too distracted by your own success to consider basic decency?" Braden flinched. Kenneth leaned forward. "Did you know who he was when this happened?" "No," Braden said quickly. "I had no idea. So you only treat people with respect when you know they have power?" Dana's eyes were ice. "When you think they might matter to your future?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Tyson's question cut through everything. "Because I've been trying to understand. I've been sitting here for 2 days, asking myself, if there's any version of this where you're not exactly who you appeared to be in that video." Braden's throat closed. He looked at Tyson, really looked at him, and saw something he hadn't expected. Not rage, not satisfaction at watching him squirm. Just exhaustion, disappointment. "I was wrong," Braden said, his voice breaking. "What I did was inexcusable. I can't." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I can't defend it. I can't make it better. I was cruel for no reason, and I'm sorry." "Are you sorry you did it?" Tyson asked. "Or are you sorry you got caught?" The question landed like a physical blow. Braden wanted to say the right thing, the thing that would save him. But sitting there, watching that video, seeing himself through their eyes, he couldn't lie anymore. "I don't know," he whispered. "I want to say, I would have felt bad, eventually, that I would have realized what I did and tried to make it right. But honestly," his voice cracked, "I forgot about you. I went home, changed my shirt, and forgot it ever happened. So maybe I'm just sorry I got caught." The silence that followed was suffocating. Jalen and Kenneth exchanged glances. Dana shook her head slowly. Tyson sat very still, his dark eyes fixed on Braden's face. "Thank you for being honest." "For what it's worth," Braden continued, knowing it was pointless but needing to say it anyway. "If I could go back and undo it, I would. Not because of this." He gestured to the room, the interview, his ruined future. "But because you didn't deserve it. Nobody deserves that." Tyson nodded slowly. "You're right. Nobody does." He stood up, and the other partners followed his lead. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Leonard," Tyson said, and Braden knew, sitting in that chair watching them file out, that his answer was already decided. 3 days passed in absolute silence. Braden existed in a strange limbo where time moved, but nothing felt real. He didn't leave his apartment except to grab food he barely ate. His phone stayed on silent, though he checked it obsessively every 15 minutes. The video had hit 200,000 views. Someone had created a Reddit thread analyzing every frame. His LinkedIn profile had been flooded with messages, some supportive, most condemning. Michael stopped by once. They sat in Braden's living room not saying much, both of them knowing there was nothing left to say. Taylor had deleted his social media entirely. Leroy was apparently talking to a lawyer about defamation, as if that would somehow fix this. On the fourth day, the email came. Braden saw the notification and his stomach dropped. He sat on his couch for 10 full minutes before opening it, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped his phone twice. Dear Mr. Leonard, after careful consideration and extensive discussion among our executive leadership team, we have reached a decision regarding your application to Sterling & Associates. To meet with Mr. Tyson Mullins privately. Sincerely, Sterling & Associates. That was it. No acceptance, no rejection. Just an invitation that felt more like a summoning. Braden didn't sleep that night either. Monday morning arrived with gray skies, and the kind of cold rain that felt personal. Braden wore the same gray suit from the last meeting, drove to Sterling & Associates with his windshield wipers working overtime, and walked through those glass doors one more time. The receptionist barely looked at him. Mr. Mullins is expecting you. His office. Not the conference room this time. His actual office. Braden took the elevator up, walked down a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the rain-soaked city, and stopped at a door with a brass nameplate. Tyson Mullins, Executive Manager. He knocked. Come in, Tyson's voice called. The office was smaller than Braden expected, still expensive. Leather chairs, dark wood furniture, built-in bookshelves filled with legal texts. But it felt more human somehow. There was a framed photo on the desk. Tyson with an older black man who had to be his father, both of them smiling at some formal event. Tyson sat behind his desk in shirt sleeves, tie loosened, looking more tired than Braden had seen him. Sit, Tyson said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Braden sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Rain pattered against the windows. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang. I've been thinking about what to do with you, Tyson said finally. I talked to my father. I talked to the partners. Braden's chest tightened. Part of me wanted to reject your application and make sure every firm in the city knew exactly who you were, Tyson continued. Part of me wanted to hire you just so I could watch you suffer every single day, knowing I had power over you. He paused, looking at Braden directly. But none of those options felt right. Braden asked quietly. Consequences, Tyson said. Real ones. He slid a folder across the desk. Braden opened it. Inside was a rejection letter on Sterling & Associates' letterhead, already signed. You're not getting this job, Tyson said. Not because I want revenge, but because you're not ready for it. You treated another human being like they were disposable, and you forgot about it immediately. Braden nodded slowly. He'd expected this. It still hurt like a blade between his ribs. He slid another document across the desk. That's a letter of recommendation for the public defender's office. It's a brutal job. Long hours, terrible pay, clients who can't afford anyone else. You'll work harder than you ever have in your life, and nobody will thank you for it. But if you're serious about becoming the kind of lawyer you claim to want to be, that's where you start. Not in a corner office. Braden stared at the letter, his vision blurring. He whispered. Tyson leaned back in his chair. Because someone gave me a second chance once. Braden sat in Tyson's office holding both documents, the rejection and the recommendation, feeling like his entire understanding of the world had just been rewritten. I don't understand, he said finally. Tyson was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant, like he was looking at something Braden couldn't see. When I was 14, Tyson said slowly, my dad took me to meet with a potential client. Big corporate guy, lots of money, the kind of person who could make or break the firm. I was dressed nice, sitting quietly in the corner like I was supposed to. Professional. He paused, his jaw tightening slightly. The man looked at me exactly once, then asked my father why he'd brought the help's kid to a business meeting. Assumed I was the janitor's son or something. Braden felt his stomach turn. My dad could have embarrassed him right there, Tyson continued. Could have made him feel exactly as small as he tried to make me feel, Braden asked. He said that man revealed exactly who he was in that moment. Tyson looked directly at Braden. He said the world doesn't change because people get revenge. The words settled over the room like weight. I'm not giving you this recommendation because you deserve it, Tyson said. You don't. I'm giving it to you because I refuse to become someone who uses power the way it's been used against me. That video showed me exactly who you were 4 days ago. Braden's throat was so tight he could barely breathe. What if I fail? Then you fail, Tyson said simply. And that's on you, not me. Braden looked down at the recommendation letter. The public defender's office. He'd never even considered it during law school. It wasn't prestigious. It wasn't lucrative. It was the opposite of everything he'd worked toward. And somehow, sitting here in this moment, it felt like the only path that made sense. There's one condition, Tyson added, his voice firm now. You take this letter, you take that job, and you never forget what happened in that mall. Not as something to feel guilty about forever, but as a reminder of who you don't want to be. You use it. I will, Braden said, and for the first time he meant something completely. Tyson stood up, and Braden followed. They faced each other across the desk, two young men who'd started as victim and perpetrator, who'd sat across from each other in that conference room with nothing but tension between them. Tyson extended his hand. Braden stared at it for a moment, hardly believing it was real. Then he reached out and shook it. Tyson's grip was firm, steady, deliberate. Don't waste this, Tyson said quietly. Tyson's eyes held his. If our paths cross again, and they will, because this city isn't that big, I expect to see someone I'd actually want to work with. You will, Braden promised. 6 months later, Braden sat in a cramped office at the public defender's clinic, surrounded by case files that never seemed to end. His suit was off the rack now, not tailored. His car had been traded for something more practical. His entire life looked nothing like what he'd imagined, and somehow he'd never felt more like he was exactly where he needed to be. His current client was a 19-year-old kid accused of trespassing, caught sleeping in an abandoned building because he had nowhere else to go. The prosecutor wanted jail time. The judge was notoriously harsh on repeat offenders. But Braden had spent 3 days building a case, finding resources, documenting everything. He wasn't going to let this kid become another statistic. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you won the Morrison case last week. Well done. TM Braden stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Thank you. For everything. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then reappeared. Keep going. Braden set his phone down and looked at the stack of files on his desk. All of them people the system had written off, people nobody else wanted to fight for. He picked up the next case and got to work. If this story reminded you that second chances matter and that change is possible when people are willing to do the hard work, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because grace and accountability can coexist. And sometimes that's exactly what justice looks like.